Namaste everybody. Again, another week has come and gone, and here we are for another thoughtful Thursday exploration of yoga wisdom. These classes are aimed at helping us lead a more joyful and happy and contented life, and to help us to grow in our spiritual journey, to move forward. And we're going to begin. So tonight, as I'm sure anyone who's tuning in is aware, that tonight the topic is the solution to the miseries of life. We'll see if there is any and what those miseries are. So we're going to begin with simple guided meditation. And so let's do that. Let's begin. Very simple, easy, but a great way to start. If you like, and you're comfortable, we can begin by closing our eyes, just to help us move out of the day into a more focused and calm mentality. So hopefully you can hear that music in the background, and we'll begin by using them to help us relax and focus. Take 2 or 3 nice deep breaths and let them out. If that helps to release tension out of the body. We're now going to work with our breath a little to help us even become more relaxed, more calm and more peaceful. And how we do that is just by becoming more aware of the subtle movement of each inward and outward breath. And as we bring our focus more internally, away from all the external distractions that we have in our life, we'll feel that gentle rhythm of each inward and outward breath. The rhythm of the breath and how it affects my body, how it works with my body, is what's going to help us relax even deeper. Let us move into simple mindfulness, and we begin with experiencing how we are the observer of the breath. Mentally you can say to yourself, I'm aware, I'm watching my inhalation, body breathe. I'm aware, I'm watching the exhalation. The purpose of this is to begin to step back in this mindfulness or silent witness practice. We're watching the ebbing and flowing of each inward and outward breath. It's all taking place automatically, without my need to engage with the breath in any way. Let us now move deeper into our silent witness practice by stepping away from the stream of thoughts which move through the mind constantly. This helps us to experience that we are the silent witness. We are the observer of this current of thoughts, this stream of thoughts. Helps us to realize that we are not the mind, we are not our mind, and we are not our thoughts. We are not our feelings, we are not our desires, we are not the fears or anxieties which are there in the mind. We are the silent witness, the Atma, the Self. Meditation is, I am the silent witness. I make no effort to think. My thoughts come automatically. I am watching thoughts flow through my mind, but I am aloof from them. I am the silent witness of my mind's activities. This realization culminates in aham brahmasmi, I am spirit. I am not this temporary body and the ever-changing mind. I am the eternal spiritual being, the eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Soul. This body is temporary. I, the Atma, am eternal. Aham brahmasmi, I am spirit. This realization is not the end of meditation, it is the beginning. So now we want to dive deeper into our meditation and spiritual realizations. And we want to engage in the practice of mantra meditation. This transcendental sound of the mantra connects us to the divine, to the supreme. So meditation on our relationship and connection with the Supreme is the goal of meditation. And mantra is the very easy way in which we can achieve that yoga or that connection. So we're going to harmonize our breathing. starting from the third outward breath. We add this mantra, Go, Ra, Anga. This sound, this mantra is the focus in our meditation. So let us begin. Let us inhale together. Exhaling. Inhaling. Exhaling. Nice deep inhalation. Last time. Keeping your eyes closed, spend a few moments resting in this deep relaxation, holding awareness of the mantra silently in the mind. Now, if you'd like to open your eyes, you may find it helpful to stretch a little bit, just to wake up. We want to be alert and able to speak and able to hear nice and clearly. So if you want to do a little stretch, you can. And as usual, if you can let us know how the audio is. You might have noticed, those who've been to the other talks we've done on the Thursdays that you might notice that we're using a professional lapel mic tonight. So this is the first time we've used it in our live stream, so if you can let us know how the audio level and clarity is, it'll be much appreciated. So again, welcome, and I hope you're doing okay. And it's very nice and much appreciated that you take the time to tune in to us and our humble offering to share some of the wisdom and practices of yoga which have been given to us. So tonight we'll be speaking on this topic of the solution to the miseries of life, and then at the end we'll have some kirtan, some more meditation with the chanting of these sacred mantras. So the solution to the miseries of life, it's a fairly bleak, well, it's not bleak, it's hopeful, but having the idea of the miseries of life is, maybe some people are thinking, well, gee, that's not a very positive, you're kind of having a bit of a negativity there, but it is actually far from the reality. There is actually a solution. Miseries are real. They're not just self-imposed. There are many different kinds of miseries that we experience in life. I know we've touched on these before in previous classes, but just to briefly introduce them again, in case we need reminding that actually there are miseries and I do need a solution. What just comes to mind is I remember years ago a friend of mine was down in Byron Bay. They were there at the hospital for a particular reason, and with two friends were there who were telling me about it. And while they were waiting there, there was some gentleman, some person in a bed in the ward, and he'd obviously had some kind of car accident or something, and had plastered legs and arms. They're all up in traction and everything, and he had some kind of bandages on his head and bruising and things like that. And one of the nurses came in and said, "Oh, how you doing, John?" "Oh, good. No, good, thanks. I feel good." So even in that kind of condition, of course we're supposed to say, "Oh, I'm good. No, I feel good." Even if we're not, that's the expected response. But obviously the person was not doing well. Obviously he was in some kind of pain and misery. But sometimes we actually have to have it pointed out to us so that we go, yeah, actually, it's because we get so acclimatized to the obstacles and challenges and struggles that we have in life that we kind of think, well, that's the norm, that's how it is. And we kind of revert to sayings like, well, you can't appreciate the good unless you have the bad. And by having the bad, this helps you to appreciate, that which is good. This is, in other words, just accept it, and what you got is all there is. And that's the solution. So yoga wisdom doesn't take this tack. It actually says there is actually true happiness. There is true joy. And you don't have to have the suffering to help you to appreciate the little things in life. There is the nature of the living being, the nature of the Atma, of you and I, is that we are blissful by nature. Not only are we the eternal Atma, the eternal spirit soul, we are by nature blissful. And that is why we're constantly searching after happiness, and we're always moving away from things which cause us unhappiness, misery, anxiety. So we want to explore this. So these three broad categories of miseries which are spoken of in the yoga text. First one is the miseries which are caused by our mind and body. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We don't need to go too much, to give explanations of that. So one misery that we deal with, a variety of miseries under this category, is the mind is harassing us and causing us things such as fear, anxiety about the future, regrets about the past, all of those kind of things, depression, all those things that's there in the mind. So the mind is causing us misery. Even though things may be going okay for us in our life, the mind, as is described in a really nice quote, is the mind can make a hell out of heaven and a heaven out of hell. The mind, the body, aches, pains, aging, diseases, viruses, injuries, old age is all part of the miseries caused by our body. The second is the miseries which are caused by other living beings. And this is one of the main things we're going to focus on tonight. Our loved ones, our family, our work buddies, other people on the road, mosquitoes, snakes, all kind of other living beings cause us miseries. And the third category is miseries arising from natural catastrophes over which we have no control. This means things like the weather, tsunamis, rain, droughts, fire, all kinds of things. I'm sure you could probably make a long list of them. So, one of the main causes of our suffering or miseries is that which is inflicted upon us by other living entities. They can be, like we said, things like parasites in the stomach, dogs down the park, and even family members and associates. Human beings cause other human beings a lot of misery. You know, you can go from the most immediate and personal is relationship problems. There's nothing more painful than a relationship that goes bad. You know, if you've ever had a broken heart, a relationship that's just gone completely off the scale of pain. So this is a misery caused by other living beings, and particularly in relationships, and usually quite immediately affected by those we have relationships with. Of course, other people outside of our immediate circle also do this, but this is one of the main things we want to look at tonight. So, you know, just because we're trying to follow some kind of spiritual path and practice, it doesn't mean that we will not have miseries inflicted upon us, or that we will not be harassed or attacked or challenging, or that our happiness will not be interfered with by other living beings. It will. So it isn't like, you know, some kind of spiritual practice eliminates those things or eliminates other living beings. It will still be there. So an intelligent person, it doesn't just mean scholastically, you know, has gone to university. We're talking about a different kind of intelligence. An intelligent person will be moved by these experiences that they continually come across in life to ask the question about why is there suffering? Why are there miseries? Which kind of then brings up topics such as, well, who actually am I? And what is my purpose of my time here? What is the best use of the 60, 70, 80 odd years that we may have here? And can I overcome these miseries? These are the intelligent questions. When I was kind of thinking about this, it reminded me of a great sage, a great spiritual personality in the yoga tradition. His name is Sanatana Goswami. He was around about 500 odd years ago, 530 odd years ago. A very, very famous sage, sainted person who's written an amazing library of spiritual literature. So Sanatana Goswami was born into a very aristocratic, wealthy family. So he had a great start in life. But not only that, so he was respected by everybody, all stratas of the society. An amazing scholar. He could speak at least 5 different languages fluently, and to be able to write poetry and things in 5 different languages. And he also became a minister in the government at that time. So in other words, you could say he was a success in life. He had everything going for him. He was healthy, strong, all of these attributes and qualities. Yet he made the decision that he wanted to find a solution to the miseries of life. You might think, gee, he's got everything. Isn't that enough? Isn't that all there is? So anyway, so he approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who some of you may have heard of. I won't be going in depth about who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. He's an amazing spiritual teacher of that time. And he made this inquiry. This is what he asked. In other words, he sought a teacher, a guru, who could actually help him understand and overcome, find a solution to the miseries of life. So his inquiry, his intelligent inquiry was, what is the position of the living entity? Why are we always undergoing these three kinds of miseries? The three kinds of miseries that we mentioned at the top of the talk. So he's asking, he's seeing that, he's experiencing that despite his high position in society. He sees that he wants to find a solution to this. This is the same thing, actually, Sanatana Goswami is in the position of being distressed in the same way that Arjuna, so if you've heard of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was distressed and he approaches Sri Krishna to also find solutions to the miseries and problems and the questions of life, beginning with, who am I and what should I be doing in life? So let us move on to the main idea for tonight, and that is, if we want to be peaceful and happy and free from miseries caused by other living entities, basically we have two choices. In one sense you could say three, but the two of them are kind of similar or connected, coming from the same place. So one solution to someone who is harassing me, who is causing me distress, who is making me unhappy, have any people like that in your life? So one of the ways to do it is that we try to change the person who is causing me distress, misery, and unhappiness. In fact, we see that person as being the cause of my suffering. We blame that person. That person is the cause of my distress because they are harassing me. What comes with that, of course, is the reality, well, that person is imperfect. They don't do things right. Of course, what do I mean by they don't do things right? They don't do things how I want them to do them. And I shall change this person's behavior to make it so that he does not cause me distress anymore. So one of the ways in which we can try to alleviate the suffering that other people cause us is by trying to change that person's behavior so that they fit more into what I consider to be better behavior and a more perfect person. So, I try to get them to become a nicer man, get them to become more patient, more reasonable person. We get them to stop being such a jerk, right? This is kind of what's, going through our mind. We try to get that person to change. And I don't know if anyone's ever tried that, but it's very difficult. In fact, it's impractical and impossible. So that's one of the ways, is to continue to have arguments, to continue to harangue the person, to give hints, how they have to change because you are causing me unhappiness. So the solution is you change and then I won't be unhappy. Can anyone relate to that? I'm pretty sure every one of us has tried it. So what's the other thing? What else can we do? We can actually try to physically force a person to change. Now, unfortunately, this brings up, the horrible reality of domestic violence. I mean, what's at the root of domestic violence? I'm not going to go in depth into this, but just to introduce an idea to see how this connects up to, real life, our own personal life. and society and the things, the ills that are there. The person is angry because this person is imperfect and they're not doing what I want them to do. Therefore, I'm going to change them. And if they will not change by me telling them they should change, I'm going to force them to change physically. I think that's understandable, the connection between these two things. So if we're going to go around and try to, in the world and try and like solve all your problems by either, getting rid of or perfecting or changing people, you're going to have a hard life. It's going to be a long night if that's going to be our approach to try and not be affected by the miseries and distress that others are causing us. Change them or get rid of them. It's an impossible task. You're not going to perfect other people who you deal with. It doesn't mean we don't talk to our friends, relatives, partners, etc. and try to work things through. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about to try and force the other person to change through one of these methods. It can be everything from, an unreasonable landlord who is a jackass that's bothering you, and you're going to change your landlord. He's not going to be such a jackass. Or it could be some kid or someone in the street who's, harassing you, going around doing things in your yard, or playing music really loud, or, there's all kind of things that people do in our neighbourhood. It causes us to get bummed and pissed off, and you're not going to change that person. And there's so many other things. You're not going to be able to get rid of all of them by killing them. That's the other option that some people actually take. I want to kind of just touch on this again not as an aside, but just a brief thing that we could have a whole discussion on. That when a person is frustrated by the things that are going on in their life, the miseries that they are experiencing in connection with the people around them, then that anger and that frustration builds up to the point where, they're just ready to explode. And it explodes in the form of anger. So frustration leads to anger. The connection is there. Anger doesn't just come out of nowhere. It's actually due to frustration. And in this context, we're talking about the frustration of others not doing what I want them to do. So hopefully that's, but is that a good approach? We're saying that trying to change people, their behavior is not going to work. So this other way we're looking at is, well, I can physically force them to change, and that can manifest itself in either by bashing a person, fighting physically, being physical with someone, shaking them, hitting them, punching them, kicking them, bashing them, whatever, different things like that, all the way up to the point of killing someone. And again, unfortunately, this is something which happens far too regularly in the whole world. That people, kill other people because they are not behaving how they want them to behave. So this, fortunately, there is a law against this. There's laws against assaulting people and killing people. And for a good reason, because even with those laws, it still happens. And by having laws, it means we're in a human civilization. We become civilized by following certain laws. So they have this law that you can't go around bashing, assaulting people, and you shouldn't go around killing people. And what happens if we do? Even though they bring in me misery, what happens? It can be anyone from, some strange guy, you want to get rid of him because he cuts you off in traffic. I remember hearing years ago about in New York City where there was this guy was murdered. There was, they were at a set of lights, and the guy in the second car, as soon as the lights changed, he kind of hit his horn for the guy in front of him to move. Now apparently the guy in front stalled his car or something like that. And so the guy behind was, hitting the horn, getting really agitated, And of course the guy was getting more flustered in the front, he's trying to start his car, it wouldn't start. So the guy in the second car got out of his car, walked around to the window of the guy in the front and shot him. All brought about because anger, frustration. You know, and that frustration kind of builds up over time. You know, the different frustrations that we accrue during our whole life are kind of just built up and sometimes just sitting there under the surface. You know, and maybe some, like, you know, in this incident I mentioned, it wasn't like the guy stalling his car was a good enough reason to kill him. But he just happened to be the guy who this other guy took out his frustration and anger on. He just happened to be the focus of, you know, when he was a kid and his parents wouldn't let him have a cookie, up to something that his brother or sister did to him, and he's holding on to it, it's building up, and his boss at work or his employees, and, you know, relationships that break up and go wrong or aren't perfect. This all kind of builds up in a person, and it can be kind of just triggered by one particular incident. Now, one of the side effects of this is just a comment, you know, that my teacher made, that, you know, this is what distinguishes animal life from civilization, is we have these rules, and then if we break these rules, what happens to a person? So the guy who shot that guy, well, he ends up being arrested, and then he ends up in prison. Now, if you think about it, just think about this for a moment. They're putting human beings in cages. You know, in the old days they had zoos and circuses and things, and they would keep the animals in cages. And, you know, of course people protested against that, and I think it's, you know, they shouldn't be put in cages. But here we have, and I just did a quick look on Google tonight, and I came across the statistic that there are 9 million people in prisons in the world. I mean, just think for a moment, there's 9 million people put in cages like animals. I mean, if you actually think about that, it's actually quite astonishing. 9 million people in cages. So, taking that approach of killing someone because they don't do what I want isn't going to work as well. And of course then we end up being harassed and misery caused to us by judges and by cops and juries and etc., etc. So I think we can say that this is not a solution. So just to wrap up this one particular part of it, trying to change others who are causing us misery doesn't work. So that's not the solution to the miseries caused to us in life by other living beings. Either physically assaulting them or killing them, this is also not a solution to the miseries caused to us by other living beings in our life. So what is the solution? This is what we want to move into now. What is the solution to the miseries we experience from those who harass at us, who bite us, who pinch at us, who harangue us? So I wanted to read something from the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaking in the Bhagavad Gita. He says in there, Krishna says, one who is not disturbed in spite of the threefold miseries, who is not elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of a steady mind. And he also goes on to say, for one who is so situated in the divine consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such a happy state, one's intelligence soon becomes steady. So the solution is not to get rid of or try to change or perfect those who are causing you harassment or misery. The only solution which we have control over is to change our consciousness. In other words, the way we respond to those who are causing us misery. That is the only thing which is in my control. In the same way that we can't control the weather, We can't control all those natural forces which cause pain and suffering to us. The only thing which we actually have in our control is to change our consciousness and to change the way in which we deal with those who are harassing us. How we respond. So that when someone does harass us, does harass you, when somebody tries to stick it to you, or when they simply are living their own lives, and it's just their very nature and their weirdness, or just the way that they cause us trouble. Even if that's all it is. They make it so that we're not very happy. That you are not able to be, so that the solution is to make it so that we're not affected by what they're doing. It does not make you miserable or unhappy or depressed. So this is actually what we want to focus on, how to do that. Because Krishna is saying there in the Bhagavad Gita that this is how we can find happiness, is the sage of a steady mind, being unaffected, being by the threefold miseries, and that one misery that includes other people. So that harassment it could be described as being, it causes a pollution. It pollutes our heart and our mind and our life, the harassment and the miseries caused by others. And you could also describe it as being like a burden. We feel a burden, overwhelmed by these haranguing and harassing of others. How do we get cleansed? How do we make it so that doesn't sink into us? How do we make it so that it does not affect us, even though, it's affecting our mind? How do you make it so that we overcome the miseries? We talked about it. So this is how we do it. We have to learn how to cleanse yourself of the, kind of strong words here, of the vomit that's left over, that's drying out and going to become a permanent fixture on your heart and your mind, of course, and that you're going to hold on to. So that's part of the problem there, is holding on to all the wrongs that people have done to us throughout our life. We're carrying that burden with us. And it just kind of sometimes, when it gets added to it, kind of festers to the top. And it builds up, and it builds up, and we get so full of this anger, and just generally, any little thing can set us off, because the person who caused you misery represents all of the people who harassed us in our life. Like I said, like that guy who at the stop sign. Pardon me. We could use so many different examples, I've got different examples here of how people are just having a bad day, and they take it out on us. And of course, we never do that to others. We never actually have a bad day and unnecessarily cause misery to other people. This is one thing that we can reflect upon in our introspection in our spiritual life as well, is how we are also causing miseries to other living beings. Our tendency is to focus on the problems that others are causing us, rather than the problems that we could possibly be causing to other people. So the solution put forward in the yoga system, in yoga wisdom practice, is known as Harinama. Harinama means we are purified by the crap which is laid onto us by immersing our heart and mind in transcendental sound, in the purifying effect of transcendental sound, of the holy names of the Supreme. So, this is why we're using examples of feeling polluted, or, vomit, because people even use that term in everyday life. That person just kind of vomited all over me, all their crap. There's still that kind of stuff, and then it's like, that's kind of covering us, and then it dries and it kind of affects us for a long time. So we're kind of covered by all this crap, and it's kind of weighing us down. So to become purified or cleansed, to remove that burden on our heart and mind, we have to engage in a process, in a practice, which helps to purify the pollution in the mind, in my heart. And this is the very practical, very effective solution to the problems which are affecting us, the miseries of life caused by other living beings. By immersing ourselves, by developing, and this will help us to develop an inner happiness which makes it possible, an inner peace, joy. We become satisfied or peaceful, even underneath all of the stress that is temporarily being caused to us by other living beings. And inseparable from this, connected to this, is the misery which comes upon us and is caused by the mind, because this is also inseparable. The person is doing a certain thing, they're harassing me, or they won't do what I want them to do, and then of course what is this? We take it on and we carry that with us in the mind. The mind is always meditating on a person. We get some email or something, or someone says something really simple, just like, if we're driving somewhere and someone's kind of going, could you just go a little bit faster? Maybe we're going too slow and we're blocking someone, and the person just happens to say, can you go a little bit faster? Something simple as that. So how do we not carry this around with us is being described here. The purifying. In fact, in one of the prayers or slokas of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he left these amazingly wonderful verses about the chanting of the holy names of God, of immersing our heart and mind in transcendental sound. And he says how it cleanses the heart and the mind of all the dust which has accumulated for lifetimes together. So that dust can also be mud, can also be vomit, worries, fears. So the regular immersion of our mind and our heart, of taking shelter in transcendental sound, in these names of the Supreme, of whom we are connected to. And so we find shelter there, we find relief, and we find purification of the pollution which is covering our heart and mind. So the outcome of that is what? The outcome is that it's not building up in me. I'm not walking around with an ever-increasing burden of miseries of what people are saying, doing, or not doing, etc. In the same way, an example for me is, if ever you've kind of been on, let's say in summer, you've gone on a nice long walk in the bush somewhere, maybe climbing up hills and things like that. It can be fun and exhilarating, but it can also be tiring. And you get to the point where you want to have a rest, you're a bit fatigued and sweaty and maybe a bit dirty. And so a really nice way to keep going, to revive from that, is if there's a waterfall there, you stop at some waterfall with a nice crystal clear pond, and you just kind of step under this crystal clear waterfall, and it just comes down and it kind of removes or cleanses all of the built up, tiredness and sweat and dirt and fatigue and all of that kind of thing. And then you actually feel good, you feel amazing, it rejuvenates you, and then you can go back out into your walk, rejuvenated. This is the effect of regular meditation upon, immersion upon, taking shelter in, practicing mantra meditation or meditation upon the holy names of the Supreme Soul. By that very simple and easy practice, we can actually find a solution to the miseries of life caused by other living beings, and the other two categories as well. How is that possible? Because within us, through our immersion in transcendental sound, we actually become satisfied. We become so satisfied that we actually care and become compassionate towards those who are causing us misery. So rather than becoming frustrated and angry and then venting that anger in these ways we've described, one actually begins to feel sorrow that this other person who is harassing me They're still harassing me. But we see that harassment they are experiencing is due to a deeper inner dissatisfaction, that they also are suffering, that they are unhappy, that they are starving spiritually, so to speak. And it is because of that spiritual starvation that they are now manifesting these symptoms of harassment, etc., causing me misery. So not only can I deal with people's harassment, it will not cause me misery. In fact, it will turn around to the point where I actually feel compassion, pity for the person who is actually causing me this misery, this distress. And I actually have their well-being at the forefront. How can I help that person? How is it possible to help that person become happy and peaceful? So hopefully that's a little understandable. Hopefully that you see the connection, that if I am satisfied, there's a nice example. I can't remember whether it comes from the Holy Bible or something like that. The term is, my cup is overflowing. Now, if we have a cup which has a little drop of water in it, and we're in a desert, and of course we're parched, we're going to kind of really hold on to that drop really tightly. And if someone else wants it, we're not going to give it to them, because this is all I have to survive. So therefore, so this is similar to, if I don't have peace, satisfaction, love, satisfied due to all of that within myself, then I cannot give it to someone else. I cannot share that, because I myself am starving. But if my cup is full to the point of overflowing, and I cannot even drink all of the water that I have, then it is actually very easy to share that with someone else. Someone else who is exhibiting the symptoms of being parched or starving. I hope that also is one of the main things that I wanted to try to share, is that reality as well. So the solution is to myself become satisfied, peaceful, joyful, and happy. That therefore my cup will be full. And therefore I will not only not be affected by the harassing, the pinching, and of others, I will actually be able to be full within myself, and therefore actually help others. So this is not an overnight thing. Those of us who are trying to apply this to our life, we still go through those challenges and struggles, but it is a reality that if you can make this a regular part of your life, then you will begin to experience that change happening. It's not going to be in 10 years or something like that. Very quickly, if you practice regularly, you will begin to experience this change within yourself. So what we are advising and encouraging is that you put aside a regular time each day. Now, the best is this. I'll give you the best case scenario first, and then we'll kind of break it down from there. If you can hear and chant and meditate upon these transcendental sound, these beautiful holy names, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, then you'll make very rapid advancement. So that's the perfection. Now you might say, as I am, well, I can't do that. I have other things in my life to deal with. I'm not a monk living away from society. It's not my whole focus in life. So now let us break it down to something which is achievable. When we start our day, the beginning of our day, if we start with this immersion, taking shelter in, resting in this transcendental sound, for 10, 15 minutes in the beginning of our day, then we're going to start our day from that platform. And then what we encounter and who we encounter during the day, our response to them, which is what we're talking about, can be very different. Now, of course, we go through the day and, stuff happens. So it does tend to build up. This pollution or burden does tend to build up during the day. So how do I overcome that? Well then, if we can put aside some time at the end of the day, again, 10, 15 minutes, something like that, 20 minutes, whatever we have, where we are again immersing our consciousness, our mind, our heart, our self, in that purifying, transcendental sound, then this will help to cleanse and purify and remove that which is built up during our day. So if our day, every day becomes like that, then you'll quite quickly begin to experience the beginnings of that perfection. And throughout our life, it actually grows and grows. Our inner peace, our satisfaction, our happiness, our tolerance, our compassion, our love, our insight, our wisdom continues to grow and to grow and to grow. And then we live upon that platform in our life. So this is the solution, the only solution. It doesn't mean we can't, as I said at one point, no, we can still have mediation in relationships, we can still talk through things, all of those things which are practical that need to be done, including sometimes just stepping away. If an argument is escalating, we take some time out from that. And we even say to the person, let's not pursue this right now. Let's have a bit of a break. Let's take a deep breath. Let's go out, I'm going to go out for a walk. There's practical things like that we can also do. But here we're focusing on, this is the most practical, but, and this is the source, the solution, the foundation to achieving better relationships and a happier life. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. I hope again that's some food for thought there, and that it was not just food for thought, but if you see some way to apply it. So how do we apply, and how can I immerse myself in this 20 minutes in the morning, or 20 minutes and or 20 minutes in the evening? Well, one of the ways is there's a practice called japa meditation. I think some of you are already familiar with that, and where you learn a personal meditation practice on transcendental sound using what is known as japa mala. And if I'm correct, we might even have a seminar that's online. Is that correct? So you can find that on the asmy.tv page. And you can even use any kind of beads at all that you have. There's even a way of using your fingers so that you can practice japa meditation. That's one way to do it. Another way is to have just spending some time where you are listening to the chanting of transcendental sound, or chanting of these mantras. Now, of course, again, on our websites and YouTube, we have numerous videos where you can actually just click, listen, you can close your eyes if you like, and you can engage in the kirtan softly, where the person on the clip who is leading the kirtan, the chanting, you listen as they lead, and then you can chant also, and spend 10 or 15 minutes in that way as your immersion in transcendental sound. So that's another simple way. Or you can actually just sing yourself. You don't need other people, you don't need instruments. You can actually sit and repeat the mantra and just sing with yourself or with your family or others who want to join in. So there's many different ways that you can actually practice and have a regular practice. So again, if there's any questions, you can put them in the comment section, and we'll get back to you. So now, just to wrap up, we'd like to have a bit of kirtan, which Miseries is going to take us through. And we'll get to practice the solution. So she's just coming around and moving our camera, our phone, so that you can see and hear. You should mute my mic.
Mute your mic.
Otherwise, people will hear me. People still hear me through the mic, through the phone.
Hi, everybody.
So if you don't know,
2, 1, 2.
This is Madhulila.
Nice to see you guys. Well,
I can't see you.
Oh, we see the comments. You've been seeing the comments.
Yeah, I've been having a watch party. So I'm going to chant the mantra Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Haribol. Haribol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol,
Hari
Hari Bol,
hour or so well spent. So just the last reminder, to try and find some time to spend time in meditation, in resting, in taking shelter in this transcendental sound. And it will give you the strength, the inner peace, and the protection that we are all actually looking for, that you are looking for, that I am looking for. So please see if you can put aside some time for this practice. Again, thank you very much for tuning in. So that's namaste. Thank you very much.
Namaste. See you next time.
See you soon.